Foot was the earliest researcher of the greenhouse effect. To test her hypotheses of the effect, she conducted an experiment using 2 bottles to represent the Earth's atmosphere and 2 lamps to represent the sun. The results showed that when the lamp began heating, both the empty bottle and the bottle with the carbon dioxide, the second bottle's temperature showed a significant increase over this heating period compared to the first bottle. And in 1856, Eunice Foote showed her experiment at a scientific conference, and this made her work become widely known in the science community. Now, while there are natural instances of the Earth heating and cooling, and the existence of greenhouse gases such as methane and carbon dioxide, and a natural carbon cycle in which carbon is recycled throughout the Earth, as humans, we have negatively impacted all of these natural occurrences. Humans have taken carbon from ground via mining for fossil fuels, continued deforestation, all resulting in the disruption of the natural carbon cycle. We have increased the amount of carbon being released into the atmosphere so much that we are seeing these effects of the warming on the Earth.
The average temperature on Earth has risen by 1.05 degrees over the past century and is projected to rise another 0.5 to 8.6 degrees over the next 100 years. If these temperatures continue to increase, our world's ice will keep melting and the heat in the air will begin to make weather conditions worse. A warmer atmosphere causes the planet's snowpack, glaciers, sea, and freshwater ice to melt rapidly, meaning that by the year 2080, most, if not all, of the Arctic Sea will be gone if we continue damaging the climate in the ways and the speed which we do now. It is undeniable that there are very real communities that are directly seeing the effects of climate change. In these same countries, many natural disasters disproportionately affect women. Women are more likely to be killed by powerful storms than men due to social constructs of norms and rules. For instance, in many countries, due to religious or cultural reasons, women are not allowed to leave the house without a male accompanying them.
The United States is the only country that hasn't signed the Paris Climate Agreement. So about 800 million people are currently vulnerable to climate change. 11% of the world's population is affected too, so they're equivalent to each other. A gallon of gas weighs about, I want to say 6 pounds, since it's 87% carbon. So it gives off about 5 pounds of carbon when you burn it. Each carbon atom combines with 2 oxygen atoms from the atmosphere, CO2. Climate change trends over the past century are extremely likely due to human activities. In addition, many of the world's leading scientific organizations have planned to speak and express their concerns on climate change.
Even though there is a consensus in the scientific community about the reality of climate change, in the United States there are many Republican politicians who claim that climate change is not real. This is due to conservative views about free market capitalism and small government. Fossil fuel companies would suffer financially if environmental impact reports were taken into consideration. Ultimately, the companies would lose their money if environmental impact studies were done and appropriate precautions were taken against these companies. There is a coalition of organizations that are skeptical about global warming, or at least the effect of human activity upon global warming. Big corporations such as Chevron, Exxon, and BP are to blame for the majority of emissions that relate to climate change. 1/2 of the current emissions that plague the atmosphere were created only in the last 25 years. 63% of the emissions were given off by oil, gas, and coal companies. 31 of these conglomerate companies are state or government owned. And the decision makers of these companies, the CEOs, in theory, could all fit into one Greyhound bus. In America, the equating of pro-environmental regulation and with socialist communist ties has a long history. Tribalism is an important aspect of American politics that is key to understanding the refusal to admit climate change as a reality. Tribalism in American politics means that if your group believes in a certain set of principles, you adhere to each and every single one of those principles. For most, it is not a noticeable choice or decision to believe something. You just do. This includes climate change. It appears that with climate change, no set of scientific evidence or studies can penetrate that sense of tribalism. Data is not the answer or the question here. Tribalism trumps, pun intended, science, and deems independent science as the other side, an enemy, not to be trusted under any circumstances.
So what can we do individually is the question. Well, you can start by living in tinier houses. By purchasing smaller homes, humans will be using less electricity and take up less living space compared to the average 2,657 square foot house in U.S. homes. We can use cleaner modes of transportation, such as walking, biking, or even skateboarding. Using clean transportation means zero greenhouse gases beyond what it takes to create the mode itself. Transit buses use more energy per passenger per mile than cars. For long distance, you're better off flying, which is the same as carpooling in the sky, or taking the train. Always recycle, have a recycle bin, turn off the lights whenever you can, have a garden, and take a shorter shower.